Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. Here we are with a friend who's going to talk about his testimonial. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Bobby Walter.
Okay, so explain your story and what happened to you.
Okay, well, really I came to faith in Yeshua as the Messiah when I was 19 years old. Like I said, I didn't have any kind of religious background, didn't really go to church growing up. And when I was 19, I had gotten involved with a lot of different drugs and alcohol and just a lot of things that I shouldn't have been involved with. And I became very depressed, and it got to the point where one night, for the first time in my life, I really spoke to God. I said, I prayed, and for the first time I really asked Him, I said, God, if you're real, I want to know you. I want to know your truth. And really, I mean, the months leading up to that moment, He had really been, I guess we could say, He was wooing me, by His Spirit. And I began to really feel convicted about the way I was living and the things that I was doing. So that brought me to that point, that pinnacle really, where I cried out to God and asked Him to reveal Himself. And that's exactly what He did. I didn't really have a traditional coming to faith types experience where, I went to a church and someone led me to faith. It was, I guess the technical term is special revelation, where God literally just plucked me from the fire, simply, I assume, by recognizing the faith, the belief that I had, the trust that I had, that He indeed did exist, and that I was a sinner, and that I needed Him. And that's what it took, I suppose, and He revealed to me right then and there that He is God, that He is real, and that Yeshua is the Messiah. And that's one thing that became abundantly clear right then and there at that moment. Obviously, I'm leaving out different things because we have to.
So at that point, did you join a Christian organization, or what happened next?
Actually, it was interesting. Right away, I was kind of like, because no one really led me to faith or no one brought me through the process, it was just kind of like, this thing that happened. I didn't know exactly where to go at first. So my journey was a bit scattered. At first, I began to read. That's the first thing I did. I would dove into the scriptures, and I began to read other books by lots of different Christian authors primarily. And one book that really that I remember reading was actually a book by Thomas Merton, who was a Roman Catholic monk from the early 20th century. And some really interesting insights in that book, and his autobiography, that's the book I'm talking about, it's called The Seven-Story Mountain, and it gives his whole life story. So anyway, I mention that because I didn't really know exactly where to go, so I began reading the scriptures, I began diving into the Word, and was reading these outside source books, and I began to try different churches out. And one of the first churches that I tried was actually a Roman Catholic church. And it didn't take long for me to realize that wasn't the place to be, for various reasons. The veneration of Mary, prayers to saints, and just the whole doctrine within Roman Catholicism when it comes to justification. So one of the things that God used that really helped me during that time to kind of stabilize me and to really help me to learn the Word more and more was actually the radio ministries of Moody Radio and Calvary Chapel Network. And believe it or not, I would drive in my car, and even while I was at home, I would listen to these sermons by great Christian men who really loved God, loved Yeshua, and were teaching the Bible in a way that I had never heard it taught before, and that's exegetically, verse by verse. Let's walk through the text. Let's really dive in and chew on the Word. And that's the one thing that stood out to me the most in that experience. The one thing that I gleaned from that experience of listening to those radio sermons was, it was feeding this desire, this hunger that I had to really dig into the Word of God and to get and to question, and to get closer and closer to God through studying His Word. Like I said, I bounced around different churches. I tried the Catholic Church, didn't last long. And eventually I tried, just about every denomination there is: non-denominational, Baptist, Presbyterian, Episcopalian, Assembly of God. You're more charismatic, you're more conservative. And it really wasn't until probably about 3 years into my walk that God brought me to the point where I was, I guess, ready to really dive into the Hebraic roots of the scriptures and the Hebraic roots of the apostolic scriptures. And that's when I came across a Messianic congregation. And really at that point things started to change. And I began to grow in leaps and bounds in the discipleship that I was receiving. Because really, those first 3 years I didn't have anyone discipling me. I visited all these churches. I tasted the appetizers that they had to offer, so to speak. But as far as feeling at home there, or really getting discipled by somebody, that was lacking. And it wasn't until I found myself in a Messianic congregation when where I was really confronted with this issue of discipleship and the Jewishness of Yeshua.
Well, now you're not Jewish, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So did you feel at any point, or did anyone bring it to your attention that this might be something for the Torah Life for Jewish people and you're not Jewish, or that you never had to come across that?
Well, yeah, I've come across that, of course. I think anyone who's really involved with the quote-unquote Messianic Jewish movement is going to come across that, because that is it's a hot topic, a hot debate right now within the Messianic Jewish world, is what to do with the Gentiles and how much Torah do we do, and who does Torah? Is it just the Jewish believers, the Hebrew believers, or is it the people, the believers from the nations who have been grafted in as well? So yeah, that was an issue that I came across, and again, I had the privilege of really being discipled by a man who was of the conviction that it doesn't matter how you're born, it only matters that you're born again. And that the Torah life, and that the commandments, and walking in the footsteps of the Messiah, and really loving the Word, and having the privilege of experiencing sanctification, or experiencing God, experiencing a relationship with God through the celebration of the Moedim, the feasts, and celebrating Passover in your home or with your community, that's a privilege that every believer has, and it's something that we can really take hold of. So the man who discipled me was Rabbi Ben Alper, and he's been just a dear brother to me, and a dear leader, and a mentor, and a good friend. And he has really helped me to come to that realization and to feel confident in it.
And how'd your family and your wife, how'd they take this when you decided we're going to live the Hebraic lifestyle?
Okay. Well, when I made the decision, I was still single, and I actually remember, one Shabbat after going to a service and praying to God and asking Him, praying about God, providing a wife for me, and saying, God, whoever this woman is that you have for me, if there is a woman, I just pray, God, that she will be of the same conviction, and that she will, be willing to step out in faith and step away and separate from certain practices or celebrations in order to embrace others that are, in my opinion, more biblical and more scriptural. And, like, again, celebrating the Passover or celebrating Sukkot as a family. And that's exactly what he provided. And I met my wife, her name is Joanna, and she was actually attending the same college that I was attending, and she was in the same congregation that I was in. So we kind of met, and one thing led to another, and we decided that God was bringing us together, and that it was His will for us to get married. So really, I count it a huge blessing that it's a battle that I haven't had to fight, really. Quote unquote divided house, or having a spouse who doesn't really have the same convictions. So I am totally blessed in that respect.
Secular people will say to Christians their life is limited because they're following the set of rules according to the Bible, which they're might not really be. But then you got Christians telling people that are observing the Torah life that their life is limited. Has your life been limited in any way since you started embracing the Hebrew roots?
No, I would not say that my life has been limited in any way. And if anything, my spiritual life, my walk with God, my life with God has been broadened and opened up to so much more, things that I couldn't even imagine.
Now you have a lot of teachings, and you're a great student of the Word, and we'll get into some other topics another time. But is there any message or anything you want to say right now to anyone watching this about making a transition to the Torah lifestyle?
Sure, yeah. Just simple things, I suppose, to keep in mind. Always question everything. Take hold of the things that are firm, core, foundational things when it comes to our faith. But if you're being taught something, whether it's in a traditional Christian church or whether it's in a Messianic congregation or a Hebraic roots conference or whatever the case is, question everything. Be like the Bereans that we see in the apostolic scriptures in the book of Acts. Stay true to the Word of God and use that as the plumb line, as the rock upon which you stand, and always bring it back to the Word.
Great. If anyone would like to contact you, do you have a way they can do so to ask any questions?
Sure, yeah. I'm on Facebook. If you look me up on Facebook, you can friend me there or send me a message on there. My name is Robert Walter on Facebook, and I live in Brooklyn, New York, so that may narrow it down a little bit in your search. And I work for a mission called Chosen People Ministries.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways, Torah Life Ministries, come out of the world.